And I just want to understand, how did you get a seat at the table? Because I want to be in spaces like that. I want to be a change agent going forward. And I just kind of want to understand, what's the path?
So, I want to believe that I was just one of the truth tellers in the street in St. Louis during the protests, and one of the people helping people understand what was happening and telling the truth. When we started Campaign Zero, it was this idea that we can win in this lifetime. We believe that. And that we believe that there's nothing greater than the content, that we know our content really well. You might hear a lot of things that people will say about me or about the work that we do. You won't hear people say that we don't know the work. You might hear people say whatever, but it's like we know the content really well, and that's what we did in the room. And I'll tell you, I don't know. I think the further get away from that, and Obama's great. Obama's as great as you think he is, um, and that is cool. Is that I'm not sure that the room always matters as much as you think. That like they needed us in the room is what is true. Do you know what I mean? People often think that like we wanted to be there. They needed us. They needed us to walk in and say that we participated in this. Frankly, probably more than we needed them in those moments. And I realize that now. And Obama was so interesting because, and this is the only part that I am like not. I'm like sort of like I get it and not frustrated with him about some of the police stuff because his team did not do a ton proactively about the police. Is that people were not honest with him. We sat I'll never forget, we're in this one meeting. It's all the civil rights leaders. It's the first intergenerational meeting of civil rights leaders ever by a president. And the first, I don't know, 20 minutes are people just saying they love him. Literally, it's like one by one, people are like, I love you. And he has to say, I know, in a very Obama voice, he's like, I know everybody's excited to be here, but we don't have a lot of time. So make sure you get to the like content, because people were just so effusive. So he could say out loud, and it'd be true that like he did not hear people press him, because they did not in person, which is very sort of odd. The second meeting we had, though, I just got arrested in Baton Rouge. I was in custody for 17 hours. And then it was like his team called saying they wanted to meet. In Louisiana, when you get arrested, they have to check off a box allowing you to leave the state of Louisiana. The judge forgot to check my box. So I'm stuck in Louisiana for another day. So I finally get home, and then it's the meeting with the president. And it's like 30 of us at that time. And I'm angry is like the kindest word I can say on stage, is how I feel about everybody at that moment. And the governor of Louisiana is there. The FBI had just been to my house. So I go up to Loretta Lynch and I'm like, hey, the FBI just visited my house. She's attorney general at the time. And she looks at me, she goes, DeRay, it's good to see you. And then walks away. And I'm like, see, we in the White House, so I can't do nothing, but okay. And then when I talk to Obama, I'm just like annoyed, right? And I'm saying to him, I'm like, Obama, like, I can't believe this, and da-da-da. And he's like, very Obama. He goes, you were okay. Okay. And I'm like, and then afterwards I go up to him and I'm like, Obama, you can't call people thugs. Because he had just called the Baltimore protesters thugs, if you remember. And he says, he's like, DeRay, you said things on TV that you shouldn't have said. And I said, but I'm not the president. And he was like, you're right. I was like, I know I'm right. Like it don't matter. And the thing, the White House was really freaked out that I used to say that the police were engaged in genocide. So every time I would say it on TV, the White House would call it. And I'm like, looks like genocide, feels like genocide, smells like genocide. And they'd be like, DeRay, can you please not say genocide? I'm like, well, can the police stop killing people? But it's one of those things where like, it was true. I was like, But the seat at the table, I'm not convinced matters as much as people think it does. And I've been in a lot of rooms. I've seen all the people. And I'll tell you that like, the work that happens before and after probably matters much more than like those moments. If anything, meeting people is probably the biggest thing that we did at the White House. Like I met all these other incredible people who cared about criminal justice and were doing incredible work. Like that was more powerful than like the actual meetings.
Can I follow up real quick, Tony? Sorry. I just want to ask one more question. So if that wasn't, the seat at the table isn't the goal, do you find that changing systems is easier outside of government, like through nonprofit work, through consulting or different things? Or what do you think, as someone that's just getting ready to graduate and really ambitious in trying to think about how to, not maybe how things are, is how I say it. It doesn't always have to be how it is right now, but what can it be? And if that's your mindset, what do you think is the best avenue to explore doing system change?
Honestly, I would say that it's hard to ignore great work wherever it is. So I believe in being in the inside. I believe in being the outside. Like when Kimmy Zero, everybody knows Breonna Taylor was killed by the Louisville police. So afterwards, there was this question about how do you stop no-knock raids? So we put together this whole plan. In every single state that has restricted no-knock raids, we wrote the bills, or we wrote the laws. Minneapolis, they just killed a Lock. We rewrote their policy. So but we didn't launch like a huge thing, but it was like we figured out the solution, and it was like hard to ignore like the good work. It was just like it was what it was, right? And on the inside, I've been in schools where the teacher might not be the most popular, but everybody knew who the good teacher was. They just did, right? Whether the teacher was like in the faculty meetings or not, or like leading the department, people knew. And I'd say somebody who was a mentor at one point to me, he said something that I'll never forget. He was like, do good work and the rest always follows. And I believe that. Like every moment that I've been pressed and it's been hard and I'm like, let me just do good work, do my best work, and all the other things follow. I was on Colbert and people would be like, DeRay, did your PR person get you on Colbert? And I'm like, the Colbert Show DM'd me. I don't know. I don't have a PR person. You know what I mean? Or I played myself on Being Mary Jane. This writer's room sent me a DM on Twitter. You know what I mean? It wasn't I wasn't pitching myself to people. It was just do good work and the cool things follow. And I believe that. I think that is more true than I ever would have believed 7 years ago.